Analysis then on today's event in Algeria with our international affairs editor, Philip Turle. Philip, organisers hoping for a big turnout today. Now, if they get the numbers they want, will that be able to stop Bouteflika running from that fifth term?
Well, it appears highly unlikely, Nadia. It depends, of course, as you say, on how many people turn up today. We've had tens of thousands out on the streets already over the past week in Algeria. This is the million-man march that the organisers are hoping is going to take place today across the country in 48 different departments of Algeria. First question is, will there be enough people taking the streets? Now, there have been an increase over the last few weeks from the basic protesters who started. Then they were joined by students. There have been lawyers in the street. There are more women taking to the street. And yesterday we had journalists out protesting about the fact that the coverage of these demonstrations was not being done in the right way on television, in fact being totally ignored, and they say that the press coverage is being muzzled and they don't want that to happen. They were arrested and then later released, about a dozen journalists. So there is definitely a growing wave of protest. Now, what's different this time round is that the protesters are joining forces through social media, which is something that's never happened in Algeria before. It's not the only country that's happened in recently, but it's one of the ways that they can get round the authorities to link up to each other and make sure that there are large numbers of people who turn up. So that's the first aspect. The second aspect is what will be the reaction by the army, because the army is backing the government, is backing the president, Abdelaziz Bouteflika. We don't know at the moment, but this remark that we just heard from the Prime Minister about being about the war in Syria beginning with flowers being given to the police is maybe a bit of an ominous sign that the authorities are getting jittery and they don't want to have to deal with a large protest, and therefore it might turn ugly.
Now, why is there so much popular anger against Bouteflika's plans to run for that fifth term?
Well, if you look at the image, the pictures of Abdelaziz Bouteflika, you can see a very old man in a wheelchair who has to be held into the wheelchair with bands around him so he won't fall out. He had a stroke in 2013. He hasn't made a speech in public since 2012. Many people are saying, well, he doesn't appear to be capable of assuming another mandate. He's been in power for 20 years already. He doesn't appear capable of assuming another mandate. The authorities say, no, this is not true. He still has a grip on power, even though he's never, or very rarely seen in public and never heard in public. And they said, well, he won't be campaigning because everybody knows who Abdelaziz Bouteflika is, therefore he doesn't need to be part of the presidential campaign. So he's going to be 82 tomorrow, and that is why people are unhappy. But that's not the only reason. They're also happy because unemployment is high in Algeria. 26% of young people are without work. There is also widespread corruption. The corruption organisation, one of the corruption organisations has said that it's the country that's the most been very, very corrupt since 2003. Many people are saying it's time that all of this came to an end and we need a new leader. So is this the start of a very delayed Arab Spring in Algeria? Well, that we'll have to wait to see, to find out.
Yeah, indeed. So what do you think is likely to happen now? Are we looking at protests that could spin out of control into more violence?
Well, it could well do. As I said before, the protesters are not don't appear to be intimidated by veiled threats from the government. You have to remember that many of the young people who are the majority in Algeria, is 27 is the average age there, don't remember anything before the time when Abdelaziz Bouteflika came to power in 1999. They don't remember the dark years. They don't remember all the massacres that took place when 200,000 people were killed during the 1990s during the war in Algeria. So they say, we don't want this president anymore. We want the country to change. We want corruption to come to an end, and we're therefore ready to fight for it. And they're galvanizing as a result of social media, and they're not frightened of the authorities. So it could spiral out of control. It all depends how the authorities are going to react.
All right, Philip, thank you very much indeed. And we'll be watching for you those protests in Algeria as they get underway a little later on today for you on the programme. Next.